a dedicated account manager, whose boss tried to steal her biggest client, and how she let him. And it cost him everything. Enjoy as she shares her story. Welcome to my channel, where real, interesting and satisfying payback stories come to life. Before we begin, please like, subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss a thing. Anytime I drop an interesting revenge story, you get notified. Also tell us where you're watching from.
It started 2 months ago. Her name was Elena Vance, CEO of Nexus Dynamics, a legend. And I was just Alexis Rios, an account manager who'd somehow scored an introductory call. I'd prepared for this like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. I didn't just pitch her our services. I pitched her a vision. I devoured every interview she'd ever given, understood her company's mission on a molecular level. I saw the gap in their strategy that no one else did. And for a beautiful, heart-stopping 20 minutes, she saw it too. The call ended with her saying, "Alexis, this was refreshingly insightful. Let's set up a second meeting." I called David, my trusted friend and colleague. I was buzzing. This wasn't just a client. This was the client. The commission alone was life-changing money. A down payment on a house, freedom from student loans validation. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just playing the game. I was winning it. The next day, I was in mid-presentation about the Nexus opportunity when the door swung open. And then, he arrived. Marcus Thorne. My boss. He's impeccably dressed, using a casual, expensive charm. He leans against the wall, listening with a patronizing smile. The man who believed success was a perfume he could wear, something he could spray on to cover the stench of his own ambition. He had a knack for swooping in when the hard work was already done. He clapped slowly, cutting me off. "Bravo, Alexis." "Bravo," he said, his voice like smooth whiskey poured over ice. This is exactly the kind of big-thinking energy I've been trying to instill in this team. The smile on my face tightened, seeing my boss tactfully building on my points and subtly repositioning himself as the architect of the strategy. In 60 seconds, he reframed the entire narrative. My solo hustle became a fantastic team effort, guided by his visionary leadership. My win became our win, which, in the hierarchy of corporate nonsense, meant it was suddenly his win. He found me later by the coffee machine and put a heavy, patronizing hand on my shoulder. "Alexis, that was great legwork. Truly. But a client of this caliber, they'll expect a C-suite presence. I'll take the lead from here. It's too important for a junior." The word junior felt like a shiv. I'd been there for 5 years. Weeks after, I worked tirelessly, compiling data, building a breathtaking
When business gets personal with you. This is a true story of Alexis, a dedicated account manager, whose boss tried to steal her biggest client, and how she let him. And it cost him everything. Enjoy as she shares her story. Welcome to my channel, where real, interesting and satisfying payback stories come to life. Before we begin, please like, subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss a thing. Anytime I drop an interesting revenge story, you get notified. Also tell us where you're watching from.
It started 2 months ago. Her name was Elena Vance, CEO of Nexus Dynamics, a legend. And I was just Alexis Rios, an account manager who'd somehow scored an introductory call. I'd prepared for this like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. I didn't just pitch her our services. I pitched her a vision. I devoured every interview she'd ever given, understood her company's mission on a molecular level. I saw the gap in their strategy that no one else did. And for a beautiful, heart-stopping 20 minutes, she saw it too. The call ended with her saying, "Alexis, this was refreshingly insightful. Let's set up a second meeting." I called David, my trusted friend and colleague. I was buzzing. This wasn't just a client. This was the client. The commission alone was life-changing money. A down payment on a house, freedom from student loans validation. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just playing the game. I was winning it. The next day, I was in mid-presentation about the Nexus opportunity when the door swung open. And then, he arrived. Marcus Thorne. My boss. He's impeccably dressed, using a casual, expensive charm. He leans against the wall, listening with a patronizing smile. The man who believed success was a perfume he could wear, something he could spray on to cover the stench of his own ambition. He had a knack for swooping in when the hard work was already done. He clapped slowly, cutting me off. "Bravo, Alexis." "Bravo," he said, his voice like smooth whiskey poured over ice. "This is exactly the kind of big-thinking energy I've been trying to instill in this team." The smile on my face tightened, seeing my boss tactfully building on my points and subtly repositioning himself as the architect of the strategy. In 60 seconds, he reframed the entire narrative. My solo hustle became a fantastic team effort, guided by his visionary leadership. My win became our win, which, in the hierarchy of corporate nonsense, meant it was suddenly his win. He found me later by the coffee machine and put a heavy, patronizing hand on my shoulder. "Alexis, that was great legwork. Truly. But a client of this caliber, they'll expect a C-suite presence. I'll take the lead from here. It's too important for a junior." The word junior felt like a shiv. I'd been there for 5 years. Weeks after, I worked tirelessly, compiling data, building a breathtaking presentation deck. I constantly had to copy Marcus on emails, keeping him in the loop. He replies with brief, non-committal thanks. I worked like a woman possessed. Every slide, every data point, every projection was perfect. It was my masterpiece. And I made a critical mistake. I trusted him. I sent him everything. The full deck. My notes. My unique pricing model. I was the dutiful soldier, handing my general the battle plans. I didn't know he was planning to fight for the other side. The day of the final pitch. I arrived at the office, looking professional and confident. I was in my best power suit, carrying a tablet. I headed straight for the large conference room, the aquarium, I'd booked weeks ago. I walked in early, ready to set up, to own the room. I went to the booking system on my phone to double-check the time. My booking for the aquarium was gone. Cancelled. Maybe a system glitch. I refreshed my email, and there it was. A new calendar invitation for a meeting with Nexus Dynamics. Happening right now. In the main boardroom. The one with the floor-to-ceiling windows reserved for the most important clients. And the host wasn't me. My face went from confusion to dawning horror. I walked quickly, my heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the polished concrete floor as I approached the main boardroom. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. This had to be a mistake. A last-minute change he'd forgotten to tell me about. I turned the corner, and I saw them. Through the glass wall. Elena Vance. Her entire team. And him. Marcus. He was standing at the head of the table, pointer in hand, gesturing confidently to a screen. He was in the middle of his presentation. My presentation. My carefully designed title slide was projected behind him. I saw him point to my unique pricing model, the one I'd spent 3 sleepless nights perfecting, and he called it our innovative, tiered approach. He was selling my ideas with his smile. The blood drained from my face. My hand, holding the tablet, goes limp at my side. My confidence was replaced by a cold, numb shock. It was a perfect, brutal heist. He hadn't just stolen my client. He'd stolen my work, my words, my future. He'd picked the lock on my career and taken everything inside. My first instinct was pure, white-hot rage. To throw open those doors and scream, "That's mine. He's a liar." But I saw his smug, triumphant smile as he captivated the room. I saw the senior partners watching him with admiration. And I knew, if I stormed in there, it would be a messy, emotional scene. My word against his. He was the charismatic director. I'd just be the frantic, unhinged junior he'd have to escort out. He'd win. He'd always win playing that game. I took steps back from the door. The rage on my face cooled and solidified into something else. Something calculating. Something dangerous. I turned my back on the boardroom and started walking away, my steps slow and deliberate. Then I did the one thing he would never, ever expect. The one move his greedy, selfish brain could never have anticipated. I didn't fight for what was mine. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I let him have it. He wanted the crown jewel? He could have it. I just didn't tell him it was cursed. Walking away from that door was the hardest thing I've ever done. Every fiber of my being was screaming at me to turn around, to fight. But I'd already lost that battle the moment Marcus decided to play dirty. To win a war against a cheat, you can't play by the rules. You have to play a different game entirely. I arrived at my desk, sitting down slowly, and placing my unused tablet neatly to the side. I didn't slump or cry. I simply powered on my computer. My movements are precise and robotic. My colleague, David, rushed over, his face a mask of fury and concern. He saw my face. He knew. Alexis? What happened? Weren't you in with Nexus? He whispered, leaning in. I saw Marcus in the big boardroom with them, I replied. He was ready to grab a pitchfork and lead a charge. My response stopped him cold. I looked at him and said, he wants it? He can have it. David thought I'd cracked. That the betrayal had broken me. He didn't see what was happening inside. The ice-cold clarity. The storm of rage had frozen into a single, sharp point of purpose. Revenge is a dish best served cold? No. It's best served calculated. I'd done more than just research Nexus. I'd researched the entire market. And I'd found a golden nugget, a preliminary, overly optimistic industry report predicting a 200% market growth in the next quarter. It was flashy. It was seductive. And I knew from a deeper, more reliable source that it was fundamentally, catastrophically flawed. The final, corrected data was due to be published in 2 weeks. I smiled. Nice one. I subtly altered some parts of the documents to make it even more appealing, more aggressive. I then created a new folder titled Nexus, all my notes, and dragged the Omega file into it, placing it between more mundane documents. I wasn't just going to let him steal from me. I was going to gift wrap the poison and hand it to him myself. I called it the Omega Proposal. A strategy so bold, so ridiculously profitable on paper, that a man like Marcus wouldn't be able to resist. His greed wouldn't let him question it. It was a trap dressed as a triumph. And like a shark smelling blood in the water, he arrived, leaning on my cubicle wall, the picture of condescending generosity. Alexis, there you are. Look, about before, he said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Client wanted the big guns, you know how it is. Politics. But your work was solid. Really solid. I'll make sure you get a little something in your bonus for the groundwork. A little something. For my life's work. I muttered. I channeled every ounce of frustration, every moment of being overlooked, and I let it show not as anger, but as acceptance, defeat. I became the person he always thought I was. I understand, Marcus. It's a huge account. It needs your weight. I'm just happy the client liked the ideas. To be honest, I'm just relieved it's in your capable hands now. Marcus's chest puffs out. He's won. Completely and utterly. He saw no threat, only submission. I could see the victory in his eyes. He'd stolen my client and my dignity, and I was thanking him for it. It was like feeding a monster until it was too fat and slow to see the knife in your hand. In fact, to make the transition smoother, I can send you all my background files. Everything I have on Nexus. There's some speculative stuff in there on future growth that you might find interesting. Marcus's eyes lit up with avarice. More? There was more? He tried to play it cool. Yes. Good thinking. Send it all over. Thoroughness is a virtue, he said. I sent it. The entire Trojan horse. I knew he'd zero in on the Omega Proposal. It was designed to be irresistible. A week later, I heard through the office gossip mill that Marcus was prepping a game-changing, industry-redefining new pitch for Nexus. He'd taken my bait, hook, line, and sinker. Marcus had meetings with senior partners, looking smug. I didn't need to be in the room. I could picture it. Marcus, puffing out his chest, presenting the Omega Proposal as his own stroke of genius. I knew he'd do what I'd never do. He wouldn't just present the optimistic numbers. He'd inflate them. He'd promise the moon to seal the deal, to make his victory absolute. The deal was signed. The announcement went out. He got a congratulatory email from the CEO. He also got a bonus so large it probably had its own zip code. That Friday, he threw a lavish party at a ridiculously expensive rooftop bar. He held court, glass of expensive whiskey in hand, telling anyone who would listen about his brilliant strategy. To bold moves, he toasted, his voice slurring slightly with triumph and alcohol. The crowd echoed him. To bold moves. They all saw it. The charismatic winner, and the quiet, forgotten junior employee he'd stepped over. They saw a loser and a winner. But I saw something else entirely. I saw a man standing directly on a trapdoor, boasting about how high he'd climbed. He was celebrating on a foundation I knew was made of sand. And I was the one who controlled the tide. I allowed myself a small, private smile. I brought the glass of champagne to my lips and took a single, deliberate sip. The contract was signed. The ink was dry. The clock was ticking. And Marcus Thorne had just signed his own professional death warrant. Tick. Tock. For 2 weeks, I watched the clock. I watched Marcus parade around the office, the conquering hero, while his team scrambled behind him, trying to turn his impossible promises into reality. The Omega proposal wasn't a strategy. It was a time bomb. And I was just waiting for the timer to hit 0. And then it happened. The market data was officially corrected. The headline reads, Revision, Q3 market growth projections corrected, statistical anomaly overstated figures. The projected 200% boom was a mirage. The market wasn't exploding. It was plateauing. The Omega proposal, the brilliant brainchild Marcus had sold, was now a financial death sentence. The foundation of his entire deal had just turned to quicksand. His top analyst, pale-faced, rushed into his office with a tablet. Through the glass walls, I could see Marcus's expression shift from confidence to confusion to outright anger. He slams his hand on the desk. The first cracks appeared immediately. The numbers didn't just not add up. They were screaming in protest. His team was in a panic, but Marcus's ego was too big to see the truth. He didn't see a flawed plan. He saw flawed people. His response wasn't to find a solution. It was to find a scapegoat. He was trying to plug a ruptured dam with band-aids and blame, but the water was rising. And across town, a far more dangerous person was seeing the same numbers I saw. Elena Vance. Before long, she stormed into the boardroom and sat perfectly still. Her posture is ramrod straight, her hands folded on the table. The air around her is frigid. Marcus entered to meet her. He was looking visibly flustered. I didn't need to be invited to the meeting to know it was happening. You could feel it. A storm brewing in the epicenter of the building. I just happened to be walking by as Elena's voice, cold and sharp as a shard of ice, cut through the crack in the door. Elena's voice was audible, calm but utterly lethal. I slowed my pace, just outside the door, out of sight. Explain this, Marcus, she said. My analysts have just presented me with the revised market data. The same data your entire Omega proposal is predicated upon. You sold my company a fantasy. A fantasy built on a statistical error. This isn't a setback. This is a catastrophic breach of trust. Marcus started stammering, his voice an octave higher than usual. Elena, Ms. Vance, this is just a market fluctuation. A temporary correction. The underlying strategy is still sound. And that initial data was from a highly reputable source. We all based our... Elena cut him off. We did not. My team and I based our decision on the guarantees you made. The specific, measurable results you promised. You were so very confident. I allowed myself a slight smile, unseen by anyone. Elena continued. Do you recall Section 7.b of the contract? The performance clause. In my first meeting with Elena weeks ago, I had included that for a partnership of this magnitude, it's becoming industry best practice to include mutual performance clauses. This is to protect both parties and to show we're both truly invested in hitting these ambitious goals together. I'd planted the seed months ago, framing it as protection for us both. Elena, being brilliant, had agreed. Marcus, in his rush to claim victory, had signed it without a second thought. He was dead silent. The blood had drained from his face. Elena Vance continued. Your proposal guaranteed specific results. Our lawyers, at your insistence, drew up the contract with that performance clause to show your confidence. You are now legally and financially liable for this failure. The full weight of the disaster crushed him. He wasn't just failing, he was being sued. He got financially on the hook for millions. The door to the conference room flies open. The company's CEO, a stern, imposing man, stormed in. His face was thunderous. The news of a disgruntled, powerhouse client ready to sue us had traveled fast. The party was over. The CEO's voice in a low, controlled roar demanded, "What in God's name is going on here, Thorne? I have Elena Vance's lawyers on the phone. Explain." Now, Marcus has been cornered, sweating, his career flashing before his eyes. He looks from the CEO's furious face to Elena's stony one, and then his eyes darted to the doorway, to me, standing there, watching it all unfold. He saw my calm expression, and in his desperation, he saw a way out. A final pathetic move. He was a rat in a trap, looking for any way to chew his own leg off to escape. His eyes locked onto mine, and he pointed a trembling, desperate finger straight at me. He said in a shrilling voice, "Her. It was her. Alexis. Her numbers. Her proposal. She set me up. It's all her fault." The room fell into a dead silence. The CEO, Elena, everyone. They all turned to look at me, standing in the doorway. The CEO is confused. Elena is curious. Marcus is panting, a wild look in his eye. There it was. The accusation. In a way, he was right. I had set him up. I laid every piece of the trap, but he was the one who'd stolen the bait. He was the one who'd walked into it. He'd just done me the favor of Alexis announcing it to the most important audience imaginable. All eyes on me. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. My eyes met the CEO's gaze and Elena's curious, intense stare. And finally, I looked at Marcus, a man completely and utterly broken. He had called me into the center of the ring. Now, it was time to show everyone exactly how the magic trick was done. I took a single deliberate step into the boardroom. The door swung shut behind me. All eyes on me as I stepped in. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and the pounding of my own heart. But this wasn't the panicked heart of a victim. This was the steady, determined rhythm of someone who had already won the war and was just here to accept the surrender. I didn't react with shock or anger. I offered a small, polite smile to the CEO and a respectful nod to Elena. I walked calmly into the room, my posture perfect, my voice clear and steady. I addressed the CEO, but my words were for everyone. My initial proposal for Nexus Dynamics. I began, my voice cutting through the thick tension, which I had the privilege of presenting to Ms. Vance over a month ago, was indeed based on the best available market data at the time. Marcus tried to interrupt, sputtering. "See? She admits it." I continued, as if he hadn't spoken. But it also included a 40-page risk mitigation annex. It outlined 3 separate contingency plans should the market underperform our optimistic projections. It was a strategy of ambition, tempered with realism. I turned to Marcus with a cold, clinical dissection look. "The version you presented, Marcus, the one you claimed as your own, you omitted the annex. You then took the most optimistic data point and inflated the projections by another 30%. You didn't just present my work. You presented a dangerously reckless caricature of it." The CEO's eyes narrowed. He looked from me to Marcus, starting to see the shape of the truth. "These are serious claims, Alexis. Do you have proof?" he asked. That was the question I'd been waiting for. I believed in transparency, I said. "So yes, I have proof." I took out my phone. The room watched, mesmerized. I tapped the screen. An audio recording began to play. It was slightly muffled, but crystal clear. Audio playing. "Alexis, sorry about that. Client wanted C-suite presence, you know how it is. But you'll still get a taste of the commission." The blood drains from Marcus's face. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I started recording our conversations the day he first tried to take credit. It was my insurance policy. And now it was paying out. And this is the email I sent you, Marcus, after that conversation. The subject line, per our conversation, all my notes for the Nexus Dynamics pitch. On the screen, the email is clear. The timestamp, the subject line, the attached folder. It was a perfect, time-stamped paper trail. You asked for all my notes. I sent them. The original strategy, the data, everything. You knew it was my work. You asked for it. You stole it. And then you broke it. The CEO stares at the screen, then at Marcus. His expression shifts from anger to pure, unadulterated disgust. There is no doubt left. He declared in a low and deadly voice, "Thorne, my office. No, you're done here." Before Marcus could move, another voice spoke. Elena Vance. She had been silent the whole time, watching me like a chess master observing a brilliant endgame. She rose from her chair. The room fell silent again. She smoothed her jacket and looked first at the CEO, her expression cool and professional. "Integrity," she said, "is far more valuable than empty promises. Your company has a clear decision to make regarding its leadership and its values." Then she turned to me. Her gaze was direct, appreciative, and held a glint of respect. "But my company will only work with a partner we can trust. We will only work with the person who was honest from the very beginning. Alexis, if you're interested, I'd like to discuss how Nexus Dynamics can partner with you directly. Your terms," she announced. It was the twist I had not even fully seen coming. She wasn't just offering me the client back. She was offering me my freedom. Marcus was ushered out by a security guard that had magically appeared. His career, his reputation, everything was over. The CEO, desperate to salvage the relationship, turned to me. "Alexis, clearly, we owe you a tremendous apology. And a promotion. Marcus's position is yours. Effective immediately." I looked at the fancy title, the corner office he was offering. I saw the gilded cage it really was. I'd almost broken myself trying to climb that ladder. Now I realized I could build my own. I smiled genuinely. "Thank you, sir. That's a generous offer. But I decline." The CEO looked stunned. I turned back to Elena. "Ms. Vance, I would be honored to partner with Nexus as an independent consultant." In that instant, Alexis Rios, strategic consultant, was birthed. I became my own boss. I got the client and my integrity intact. He tried to steal my client to get ahead. I allowed him and he lost it all. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight for the knife in your back. It's to let your enemy grab it by the blade. He was so focused on the prize, he never saw the cost. He cost himself everything. And I got everything.
Thank you so much for watching this interesting revenge story. If that sounds like your kind of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. We have so many more tales of calculated wins and quiet victories to share. Also, don't forget to like and share the story with others. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done in Alexis's situation? Once again,